Okay, let's start. What if 3x plus 15 is equal to 93? What is the value of x? So this is solving linear equation. So the first thing that we normally do, move this term right here. Whatever is being adding or subtracting, move it over to this side. Number remains the same, sign changes to the opposite, or the operation changes to the opposite. So it's going to be 3x is equal to 93 minus 15. That's going to be equal to 3x. So we have 93 minus 15 is equal to 78. So because 3 is multiplying, so the last thing that we'll do is divide both sides by 3. So we'll have our final answer, which is going to be x is equal to, so 3 cancels 3, and 3 divided by 78 is going to be equal to, so 78 divided by 3 is going to be equal to 26. 26 is going to be your answer right here. For persons who can't divide, I'm going to write the steps for division, steps for division, because you're not supposed to use calculator in paper 1 exams. So step 1 is to divide. Step 2, divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and repeat. So if without the calculator you were dividing the 78 by 3, so the first step is to divide. So 3 to 7 goes 2 times. Afterwards you multiply. So 2 times 3, that will be equal to 6. After you multiply, you subtract. So after subtracting, you will have 1. And after subtraction, you bring down. So you bring down your 8, and that will be 18. After you bring down, you repeat the steps. So you're going to go straight back to step 1. So that's going to be divided. The 3 into 18 goes 6 times. And after you divide, you multiply again. So 6 times 3, that's equal to 18. Subtract, and you should get 0. So the process ends after you subtract and get 0. But so just in case you don't know, remember how to divide, use this as a guide to help you to divide. All right, moving on. So what is the value of q that satisfies the equation? So 3q over 4 equal to 6. But the first thing that you need to do, look at is what does 3q means? What does 3q mean? So 3q means 3 multiplied by q. So 3 multiplied by q. After we multiply by q, we divide by 4, and that should be equal to 6. So if you have an idea of what that is, you can easily write your answer in. But if not, you can just transpose to make q the subject of the formula. So we're going to make q the subject of the formula. So we're going to transpose to make q the subject. So we're going to make q the subject. So in order to make q the subject of the formula, what we would do if we were solving, let's say that we did not know what 6, that we didn't know what it was equal to 6, right? But we know what q was equal to. Let's say we know what q is equal to, but we didn't know it was equal to 6. How would we solve that normally? So how we solve that normally, more than like what we would have done, we would have multiplied 3 by q first, and then we'll divide by 4. So when we make when we change the subject, we're gonna do the opposite. Means that what we would do first will come last. So the last thing that we will do is to divide by 4. So that means the first thing that I would do is to get rid of the 4 right here. So I'm gonna move over the 4 first. All right. So I'm gonna rewrite it over here. So it's gonna look like this. So it's gonna be 3q over 4 is equal to 6. So the first thing I will do is to move over the 4. So I'm going to move this 4 that's dividing the 3q, and I'm going to carry it over the opposite side of the equal sign. So because 4 is dividing, the operation will change. So I'm going to end up having 3q is equal to 6, because the 4 was divided. the operation will change to multiply. So it's 6 multiplied by 4, and that now is gonna be equal to 4 times 6, that's gonna be 24. And then we have our 3q. When we're at this point right here, it's pretty easy to finalize because we know that the 3 is multiplying the q. So if 3 is multiplying the q and we want to get q by itself, then all we have to do, if we want to get q by itself, then all we would have to do is just to divide by 3, since it's multiplying q. So if we divide by 3 at this point, then we'll have our final answer, which is q. Q now is gonna be equal to 24 divided by 3. That's gonna be equal to 8. All right, so the answer is gonna be equal, is gonna be 8 right there. All right, so the answer is gonna be 8. And we can test our answer by plugging it right here. So let's see if we get our answer to be equal to that, to 6 after doing it. So 3 times 8 is 24 over 4 divided by 24. That's gonna be equal to, so 3 times 8, yeah, 24, and 24 divided by 4 is gonna be equal to 6. All right, so after dividing 24 by 4, it's equal to 6. So that means that 8 is the answer right there. All right, so just as when we were solving, you realize that we multiplied first to get the 24, and then we divide by 4 in order to get 6. So we do the opposite, where we get rid of, we do the opposite, where we got rid of the number, we do the opposite. So we would move over the 4 first to that's divided. So what we and then after moving over the 4 that's divided, we multiply, and we'll get rid of the 3 afterwards. So it's the reverse. All right, so we're gonna do number 3 now. All right, so number 3. All right, so -5 plus -4, that's equal to, so if you owe, so I have a video on, I think I have a chart on adding negative numbers. Yes, I do. So if you add 2 negative numbers, you're gonna get a bigger negative. So I'm gonna write it down. If you add 2 negative numbers, you will get a bigger negative number. All right, so that means 5 plus 10. 5 plus 10 is going to be equal to 15. So what kind of 15 that would be? That's going to be -15. All right, moving right along. Which option best shows the multiplication rule of integer? All right, so negative times positive should be negative, so that's not showing anything. Negative times positive is negative. That's good so far. Negative times positive give you negative, gives negative. It should give a negative, but if you realize the figure right here, the number right here is incorrect, because 6 times 3 is not 12. 6 times 3 is 18. So that wouldn't be correct right there. So B says none of the above. So B is the answer right there. 6 times 3 is 18, and negative times positive is negative. All right, so let's look at question 5. So we have -3 squared. So this is -3 times -3. That should give you +9. And we have -2 times -2. That should give you +4. So if we add them together, that should be equal to +13. All right, so that means that our answer is C. All right, moving right along. The number 3.14063 written to 3 decimal places is, so this is gonna be 1 decimal place, 2 decimal place, 3 decimal place. So that means that the 0 is in the 3rd decimal place. All right, so what you're gonna do, because 0 is in the 3rd decimal place, you're going to look at the number beside, or digit beside the 0, which is gonna be in this case 6. All right, so because it is greater than 5, so because it is greater than 5, so let me write it down. So if the digit beside is equal to 5 or greater, we round up. So if the digit beside is equal to 5 or greater, we round up. So looking at this right here, we have 6. So 6 is greater than 5, so we round up. Round up. So that means that it's gonna be equal to 3.141, because 1 plus 0 is gonna be 1. So 3.141. So this is gonna be for the 3rd decimal place. All right. Moving on. Question 7. What? So multiplying this, so we're gonna multiply this and find the number to the correct decimal place. All right, so there's something important that you need to know, because we're not gonna use our calculator, so we're gonna work it on our own. So if we multiply 2, all right, so if we're multiplying these two decimal numbers right here, this number right here has 1 decimal place. So it has 1 decimal place. So 1 dp mean 1 decimal place. This number here has 2 decimal places. Decimal places are really for the digits that comes before the decimal point. So if you look right here, only 1 digit come before decimal point. But for this number right here, we have 2 digits that comes before the decimal point. So this is 1 decimal place, and this is 2 decimal place. So if you multiply these 2 decimal numbers right here, your answer is going to have 3 decimal places. All right. But the thing is that we need to ensure that when we find our answer, we are gonna round it to 2 significant figures. All right, so let's multiply our numbers first, and then we will round it afterwards. So we're gonna multiply our 2 digits, our 2 numbers first. All right, so let's just multiply out. All right, so 3 times 9. So let's multiply it just as is. So 3 times 9. So 9 times 3 is going to be equal to 27. So you put down your 7 right here. You carry over a 2 to be added. And then you're going to have your 3 times 8. So your 3 times 8 is going to be there. That's equal to 24. 24 plus 2, that's going to be 26. So you put down your 6. And you carry over your 2 to be added. So 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2, that's going to be 5. All right, so after we are finished with multiplying this number by 3, we're going to multiply it by 0 afterwards. All right, so let's move this so we have more space. All right, so that's going to be 0 times everything right here. So you put your placeholder just as is. Put the placeholder just as, so it's gonna be 0, and then you have 0 times 9, that's gonna be a 0 right here. Your 0 times 8, you're gonna be a 0 right there, and a 0 times 1, you're gonna put a 0 right there. All right, and then afterwards we're gonna multiply by 2. So 2 times 9 is gonna be 18. So you put down your 8. Oh, sorry. Ensure that you have your placeholder. So you're gonna have your 0 and your 0 again. So ensure you have the placeholders, and then you're gonna multiply by 2 afterwards. So 2 times 8, sorry, 2 times 9, that's going to be 18. All right. And then 2 times 8, that's going to be 16 plus 1. So 16 plus 1, that's going to be 17. And you carry that 1 over. All right. And then you multiply by 2. So 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1, that's going to be 3. Afterwards, you add all your numbers in the correct row. So that's going to be, because we're adding, so that's going to be 0 plus 7. So that's going to be 7. 6 plus 0, that's going to be 6. 5 plus 8, that's going to be 13. Plus 1. And 1 plus 7, that's going to be 8. And we have our 3 down. And remember, we say that our answer should have what? How many decimal places? 3 decimal places. So because our answer should have 3 decimal places, that's what we're going to put right now. So our answer should have 3 decimal places. So that's going to be 1, 2. Let's use a light color. It's going to be 1, 2, 3. So your decimal point would be right here. So your answer would be equal to 38 and 38, 3, 6, 7. So that's gonna be after your answer when you multiply 18.9 times 2.03. So that's gonna be your answer. All right. So afterwards, we have to round it to 2 significant figures. So if I write my the digit right here, the number right here, the whole number, then I can count my significant figures pretty easy. So because the first digit is greater than 0, this is going to be my first significant figure. So this second digit right here is going to be my second significant figure. All right, so I already have my 2. I already have my 2 digits in my for my second significant figure if I'm writing it out. So I already know my second significant figure. So my second significant figure is right here. It's the 8. It's the 8. So because the second significant figure is the 8, and I know that decimal point comes afterwards, if I'm rounding to the second significant figure, I still will have to treat it like I'm rounding numbers. So I would have to look at what digit comes after the 8. What digit comes after the 8? And I can see right there that the digit that comes after the 8 is just 3. It's a digit 3. All right, and 3 is less than 5. So because 3 is less than 5, we're gonna let the number remain the same. So 3. All right, so because the number beside the second significant figure, 8, is less than 5, the number remains the same. So that means that the number will just be 38. All right, so this is the answer right there. So moving right along. If 350 is shared in the ratio 2 to 5, what are the smaller shares equal to so we have to find the smaller share. So when we're dividing numbers by any given ratio, we know that the number is going to be shared into equal parts based on the fraction, based on the ratio. So the number of equal parts is going to be 2 plus 5. So that's going to be equal to 7. So that's 7 equal parts. All right, so that means that I would have to divide. So that means that I would have to divide 35 by 7 in order to know how much would be in each equal parts. Right? So if I share 350 into 7 equal parts, that means that I would have to divide it by 7. All right, so if I divide by 7, that's gonna be 335. All right, so that's gonna be 335 divided by 7. So 7 into 35 goes 5 times. That's 5 times 37 is, so it's gonna be 50. So because 7 into 35 goes 5 times, and there's just a 0. So if I divide it 70 divided by 350, it's gonna be equal to 50. So that means that each individual part will be 50. So if I share it into 7 equal parts, that means that each part will be equal to 50. So if each part is equal to 50, that means the person getting two parts So the person who is getting 2 out of the 7 equal parts, right? They're gonna get 50 plus 50. And if I add that together, that's gonna be equal to 100. All right. So in sharing ratio, in any sharing whether money or anything into any given ratio, is basically telling us how many equal parts. Just like when you have your bands or your groups, out how many equal groups I'm gonna share this money into. So 7 equal parts. All right. So if I'm gonna share it into 7 equal parts or 7 equal groups, that means that each group will get 7 divided by 350, 50. So each group will get $50. So each group will get $50. So each group will get $50. So if each group gets $50, then the person who gets two out of the 7 equal groups, they'll end up getting $100. All right. So C will be your answer right there. 100. All right, moving on. So 3 over 100 is the same as, so if you have 3 and you divide by 100, the number of zeros tell you how many times you move your decimal place point. So these are 2 zeros. So the number of zeros tells you how many times you move your decimal point. So naturally, my decimal point is going to be right here, because this is just the number 3. So if I'm going to move my decimal point, I'm going to move it inwards because I'm dividing it. So I'm going to move it to the left. I'm going to move to the left. That's going to be 1, 2. Within this space right here, I put a 0. And another 0 would be right here. So that's how I move it. 1 time, 2 time. So 1 time, 2 time. All right. So this would be my answer right here. B. All right. So question 10 says a test was marked out of 80. A boy scored 60% of the marks on the test. How many marks did he score? So that means he scored 80, but it's marked out of 80. All right. So that means it's going to be 80 So it's going to be 80 over x is equal to 60 over, because 60% is 60 over 100. So whatever you got, it should be equal to this. All right. So if we have our equal sign right there, you know that we're going to cross multiply. So 80 times 60. 80 times 60, and then we'll divide it by 100. So now to get x by itself, we're gonna just move over the 80 and multiply it by our 60. So we're gonna multiply 80 by 60. All right, so 80 times 60 all over 100. So that's gonna be x is equal to this. All right, so 80 times 60 is gonna be equal to, so 80 times 60 is equal to 4,800 and that should be divided by 100. When dividing by 100, the only thing that we have to do is to eliminate the zeros. So you eliminate the zeros, the two zeros from both top and bottom. After that, we're left with x is equal to, because this is the equation that we're using. So x is equal to, what's left back is 84. So x is equal to, sorry, not 84, 48. So x is equal to 48. All right. So that means if we have 48 over 80, that should be equal to 60%. All right. So, sorry, 48. X is equal to 48. All right. So remember, look at how I do the equation right there. This is me writing it just as though your teacher would give you your mark. Out of 80, x being the grade, we don't know what your grade is. So x, because we don't know what your grade is, over 80, because it's marked out of 80. But it should be equal to 60%, right? And 60% as a fraction is just 60 over 100. So in order to get rid of, in order to get x by itself, we just move over the 80. If we move over the 80, from this side of the equal sign to the next side of the equal sign, you know it's going to multiply. And when it's multiplying right there, you know that's going to multiply the numerator, right? Think about it when we're cross multiplying. So you're going to end up multiplying that numerator, all right? So 80 times 60 is equal to 4,800, and you divide by 100 to get your answer. So 48 is the answer right there, all right? So moving on to the next question. All right, so all right, so what is the area of a triangle with base 4 centimeters and height 6 centimeters? All right, so let's write the area of a triangle. Let's write the formula. So the area of a triangle, is you're going to have half base times height. So base times the height, we're gonna half that. So to find in the base times height, you divide by 2. All right, so the base is 4 and the height is 6. So that means that it's gonna be equal to 4 times 6 all over 2. That's gonna be 4 times 6. So 4 times 6, that's gonna be 24. So 24 over 2, it's gonna be equal to 12. So 12 centimeters squared, because we're finding the area. All right, so A is the answer right there. Question 12, what is the area of a square? Sorry, the area of a square is 94 meters square. What is the length of one of its sides? All right, so the area of a square, is equal to side times side, so side times side. So in this case right here, side times side is gonna be equal to, so let's write it right there. We already know what the area is. So the area is 49 equal to side. Normally the side should be the same because it's a square. So that means that I am just gonna say, I'm gonna let it be x squared, because these are the same. So it will be the same number times the same number that will equal the area. So in order to find, because we don't know what the side is, but we know that we can write it be one side being x. So x will mean that that's the variable. So x squared, because it is side times side, the same number multiplied by the same number. All right. So in order to get x by itself now, the opposite of squared is square root. So let me draw the table right there. All right, and I put the sign. and the opposite of the sign. All right, so the opposite of squared is square root. All right, so that means that if I move this squared right here, right, and I move it to the opposite side of the equal sign, it's going to change to the opposite, which is square root. So I'm going to end up having the square root of 49 to be equal to x, because I move the squared, and the opposite of squared is going to be square root, right? So if I move over the squared right here to the next side of the equal sign, it's going to change the squared to square root. So the square root of 49 should give me what x is equal to. And what number can I multiply? What number can multiply by itself to be equal to 49? That's going to be 7. All right, so that means that 7 is equal to x, right? So for that square right there, 7 times 7 should be equal to 49, right? So 7 meters is the answer right here. That's A. Moving on to question 13. What are prime numbers up to 23? So prime numbers are numbers that can be divided. So let's put the definition right there. Can be divided only. So can divide only so prime numbers can only be divided by 1. So that's the digit 1, and 2, the number itself. So it can only be divided by the number 1 and the number itself. So looking at this right here, what numbers can only be divided by 1 and the number itself? So let's look at A. So I see 1. 1 can be divided by number 1 and itself. 3, it can only be divided by 1 and the number itself. Yes. 5, yes. 5 can only be divided by number itself. 7, yes. 9, no, because 3 can divide by 9. So 3 into 9 goes 3 times. So we can't use number. We can't use A. B, no. I'm seeing 8. I'm seeing 6. 2 can go into 8. 2 can go into 6. So that's a no. 4, I'm seeing a 4 for 6C right there. So that's not a C can't be prime number because 2 can go into 4. All right, let's look at this right here. So 2, yes, 2 can go into 1 and 2. There's no other number. 3, yes. Can only be divided by 1 and itself. 5 can only be divided by 1 and itself. 7, yes. 11, yes. 13, yes. 17, yes. 19, yes. And 23. So D is the answer there. These are prime numbers. It can only be divided by the number 1 and itself. So that's why it's called prime numbers. Prime numbers. All right, so moving on. Question 14. A shop sells on average 250 cans of juice a day. There are 25,500 cans in stock. How many days will this stock last? So how many does it sell a day? So it sells this amount per day, and there's this amount in stock. So that means that we're going to divide. So we're going to divide. We're simple, that's going to divide right there. So 250 divided by 25,500. All right. So do you remember the steps for division? So the first step is to what? Divide. Remember it? I'm going to go back. So the first step for divide, then multiply, subtract, bring down, and repeat. All right. So we're going to be using these steps to divide. All right. So this is 550. So I'm going to divide first by 255. So I'm going to divide by 255 first. All right. So how many times can 250 go into 255? Well, obviously, one time. So 1. Because 1 times 250 is going to be 250. After subtracting, you'll be left with 5. After subtracting, you bring down. So you're going to bring down that 50. After you bring down, remember, after you bring down when you divide, immediately after you bring down, you repeat the process. So you have to divide next. All right. So therefore, you're going to divide. How many times 250 can go into 50? 0 times. You can't. So you're going to multiply that 0 by 250. That's going to be 0. We'll subtract afterwards. So let me write that down. So it's going to be going to 0 times. So multiply 0, subtract. You'll be left with 50. After you subtract, you bring down. So that's going to be 500. And last time I checked, if I multiplied, how many times 250 can go into 500? Last time I checked, it was 2. That's 2 times 250 should be equal to 500. And when you subtract, that is equal to 0. All right. So therefore, your answer is going to be equal to 102. So that's going to be your answer right here. So how many days will these stocks last? So because it says this amount per day divided, it's going to last 102 days. All right. So that's it. We're going to move on to the next question right now. So moving on to question 15. When you square the number 13, the result is, so square means that you're going to have 13 and you're going to raise it to the power 2. So that means you're going to have 13 times 13. Right? So if you know your timetable, 13 times 13 should be equal to that's 169. All right, so let's move on. So now we're going on to algebra. So we're asked to simplify. And if you realize right here, we have some numbers in brackets. So we're going to first, when we see numbers in bracket, the first thing that we're going to do is to distribute. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. We're going to distribute everything outside of our bracket. We're going to multiply with the all the terms that we have inside the bracket. So 2 times x, 2 times x, 2 times -1, 3 times 2x, and 3 times that +1. All right, so we should get after multiplying 2 times x, that's gonna be 2x, and 2 times -1, that should be -2. And then we're gonna do the same with the other set right there, the other group right there. So that's gonna be 3 times 2x. So 3 times 2x, that's gonna be 6x. So 3 times 2x is gonna be 6x. And then we have our 3 times +1, 3 times 1, that's gonna be 3. Afterwards, we know that we group our like terms. Group like terms. So that's gonna look like this. So that's gonna be 2x plus 6x, and we're gonna have our +3 -2. All right, so grouping the like terms, we know that we add all our constants together. So this is one group, and this is another group right here. Our x term is just another group. So these are 2 groups. So we should have our final answer to be equal to. So 2x plus 6x, that's going to be 8x. So 8x plus 1. Because 2 from 3, that's going to be 1. All right, so 8x plus 1. So these are answer right here. It asks to factorize this equation, sorry, this expression right here. So this, obviously looking at it, because it's just two terms, just HCF. All right, so just two terms. So we can factor by using the highest common factor. So the highest common factor between these two terms right here, let's look at the number first. So let's write, so it's gonna be 4xy plus 6y. So if we look at the numbers first, what's the highest common factor between 4 and 6? That's gonna be 2. That's gonna be 2. What's gonna be the highest common factor between the letters? So the only letter that I see in common right there is y. So y is common between two terms. So that means that y is gonna be 2y. So 2y is the highest common factor if I pull from the two terms. So 2y. So if I take or divide 2y from the two terms, I'm gonna be left with 2 divided by 4. It's just gonna be 2. And if I take away y right here, I'm just left with x plus 2 divided by 6, that's gonna be 3. And if I take away the y right there, I'm left with nothing. So I'm gonna have 2y outside the bracket, and I'm left with 2x plus 3. So A is the answer right there for 17. I'm asked to factorize this right here. So I have 144a squared plus 2a. So I'm gonna write it right out here. So that's 144 a squared plus 12 a. All right, so that means if I look at my numbers alone, so I have 144 and I also have 12. So if I look at my numbers, the highest common factor or the highest number that can divide both the 144 and 12 without leaving a remainder is going to be 12. So that's going to be 12. Let's look at the number. Let's look at the letters. So I see a A right here and I see a A squared. So that means I can take a A from both sides. So the highest common factor is going to be A. So if I divide 12 into 12 divided by 144, that's going to be 12. And if I take A from A squared, I'm left with 1A remain still. Plus 12 divided by 12, that's gonna be left. I'm gonna be left with 1. And if I take away A right here, there will be nothing left. So this is gonna be my answer, where I have 12A outside, 12A inside, plus 1. So A is gonna be my answer right there. All right, so looking at this one right here, I can realize for these three terms right here, P is common between, and I can see that even for the numbers right here. So let's look at the numbers right here. So we have 6, so we have 6, 3, 3, and 12. So we have we can factor, we can get the highest common factor between 3, 6, and 12, and that's gonna be equal to 3. So 3 is gonna be the highest common factor right there. And we realize that we can get a P. So a P is actually a factor of all three terms. So that means I'll be left with, if I divide 3 into 6, 6 divided by 3, I'll be left with 2. If I take P from this first term right there, I'll be left with nothing. So that's just 2 plus if I take 3 divided by 3, I'll be left with nothing right there. But if I take P from this P squared right here, I'll be left with P plus, sorry, minus. So 3 divided by negative 12, I'll be left with negative 4. Be left with negative 4. and p divided by p. That, you know, if I take p from this right here, this third term, I'll be left with no letter right here, so p will be gone. So if you have your answer looking like this, you could get, yeah, this could work. Yeah, this could work. I see the answer right there. So the answer would be, so p times 2 times p minus 4. So the answer right here is gonna be question A. Sorry, option A. All right, moving right along. So I have factorized completely. I have 4 terms right here. So I'm just gonna separate it into, no, we're not gonna separate, yeah, we can separate it into the 2 parts because there's a common letter between each 2 groups. All right, so if I look at this common letter right here, it has factor, the letter that's common between this group right here. So the first group I'm talking about is, let's highlight it. So if I look at this first group right here, there is the common letter A. So I'm gonna have A x plus y in brackets. And for this group right here, what's common is B. So I'm gonna have B outside the bracket, and then I'm gonna have my x plus y in brackets. So this is factoring by grouping. And when we're finished, we just take what is outside of the brackets. So this is gonna be my A and my B. I'm gonna take what's outside the bracket, and this is gonna be inside one bracket. So I'm gonna have 2 brackets down because we're doing factoring by grouping. So that's gonna be A plus B. So positive A, positive B, so A plus B. And we're gonna have our x plus y. All right, so that means that my answer is A. All right, moving along. So it's the same thing, factor by grouping. So I'm gonna separate it into 2 parts again. So I'm gonna look at what is common, and I can see from these 2 number that's common is gonna be 3. The letter that's common is gonna be P. If I take 3P out for the first term right here, I'm left with X minus. If I take 3P, I'm just left with Y. So I know that I need to get 3X minus Y over there as well. So let's just see what we get. All right, so factoring by grouping. All right, so what's common between these two terms for this side right here, and we're over the second side. So let me highlight what I'm talking about. So I'm over the second side. So what number is common right there? That's gonna be 7. All right, so if I take, so 7 divided by 7. Oh, and also I have Q, that's also common. All right, so I'm gonna take 7Q from both sides. Okay, so I will be left with, in this case right here, I want to ensure that the numbers or the letters match. So that means I should get the same positive and negative. So if I take, I don't want to have a negative x, I want to have a positive x. I'm gonna change this to a -7. So I'm gonna take -7 from both sides. All right. So if I take -7 from this, I'm just gonna be left with just 1 alone. So if I divide -7 by -7, that's just +1. So that's gonna be positive. Q, if I take away Q, nothing will be there. So +1 and x, that will just be x. All right. And if I divide 7 divided by -7, because I put the -7 outside the bracket right there. So 7 divided by -7, that's gonna be a negative. So, and then if I take Q from the Q right there, I'll just be left with Y. So that's the whole point. That's the reason why I did it right there, because I want to ensure that these two, I wanted to ensure that whatever is in the group right there, it's the same, because it needs to be the same so that we can put them in one bracket. All right, so let's just finish off our answer right there. So I'm gonna have my 2 brackets. So 1 bracket is gonna be for the terms that are outside. So the terms that are outside are gonna be in 1 bracket. So I'm talking about my 3P, and I'm talking about my -7Q. So that's gonna be, for my answer, I'm gonna have 3P minus 7Q that's one bracket, and the second bracket I'll have these terms that are the same. So that's my x minus my y. All right, so my answer now is gonna be over here. So 3p minus 7q, and we have x minus y. So A is gonna be my answer right there. 22, the highest common factor of 12, 15, and 60. That's going to be, is it 12? No, it cannot be 12, cannot be 60. It's going to be 3. So that's the highest common factor. That's the highest number that can divide 12, 15, and 60 without leaving a remainder. All right, so we're asked to simplify this fraction right here. So we'll just add it first. So we're just gonna write it over this side. So x over 3 plus x over 5. All right. So what we're going to do is just to find the common denominator right there. So the common denominator between 3 and 5, that's going to be 15. What did you multiply 3 by now to get 15? That's going to be 5. Anything you multiply the bottom, you must multiply by the top. So 5 times 3 will give you 15, but 5 times x, that's going to give you 5x. And then you're going to have, what did you multiply 5 by now to get 15? That's going to be 3. Anything you multiply the bottom, you must multiply the top. So 3 times x, that's going to be equal to, so plus 3x. All right, so that should be equal to, so 5 plus 3x, that's going to be equal to 8x. So 8x over 15. All right, so that's going to be your answer right there. So what is this fraction? It's simplest form. The same thing again. So 5x over 3y minus 4y over 9x. All right, so now that we have this right here, first thing that we have to do is find our lowest common denominator. So the lowest common multiple or denominator between 3 and 9, that's gonna be 9. And you rewrite your letters, so you're gonna rewrite your x and your y. All right, so what did you multiply 3y by now to get this right here? So you multiply 3 by 3 to get 3, 9, but we must also include the x. So let's write a little better. So you multiply it by 3x. All right, so 3x times 3y is going to give you 9xy. And anything you multiply at the bottom, you have to multiply it at the top. So that's going to be 3x times 5x. All right, so 3 times 5, that's going to be 15. That's going to be 15x squared. And then we have what we multiply 9x by in order to get 9xy. So you have to multiply it by y in order to get 9xy. So if you multiply it at the bottom, you have to multiply it at the top. So you multiply by y above as well. So y times y is y squared. So you're going to have minus 4y squared. So this is going to be our answer because we're not going to be able to subtract because these are unlike terms. So our answer is going to be over here. That's going to be A. So 5x squared minus 4y squared over 9xy. Should I do this? I don't think I want to do this question. I don't think I should be doing this question, but I'm gonna do it nonetheless. So we're just adding. I like to ensure that when I'm adding numbers, I ensure that I am on the correct, I give them enough space so that, you know, persons make less mistakes. I always tell persons to ensure that when you're adding or subtracting, leave enough space between your digits so you can do it properly. All right, so 0 plus 5 is 5. All right, this is gonna be 12. So you put down the 2, carry the 1 to be added. So 1 plus, so it's gonna be 12, 13, 16. Carry the 1. So it's gonna be 8. So it's gonna be 11. Carry the 1 to be added. So 3 plus 1, that's gonna be 4. All right, so that's gonna be 41,625. All right, so that's gonna be D. All right, moving on. So eggs are packed in trays of 30. How many eggs are in 15 trays? So if eggs are packed in trays of 30, so that means that 30 eggs are in one tray. So 30 eggs are in so that means that if we're looking for how many eggs are in 15 trays, we're going to have to multiply that 30 by 15. So it's gonna look like this. So we're gonna multiply the 30 by 15. So it's 30 times 15. So 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 3 is 15. Before you multiply by 1, you put your placeholder 0 right there. And then multiply by 1 afterwards. So that's going to be 30. Then you add. That should be equal to 450 eggs. A leaflet has 14 pages. A customer orders 2,500 copies. How many pages will be in this total? All right, so we're just dividing. So hold on. So a leaflet has 14 pages. A customer orders for 2,500 copies. How many pages will be in this total? Okay, so all right. So if one, so that means that one of these has 14 pages. So if she orders 2,500 copies, that means that it'll be multiplying. So you have to be multiplying. So you're multiplying. So 2,500 copies. She wants 200. The copies is for the leaflet. All right. So in order to know how many pages that will be, you have to multiply by 14. All right. So 4 times 0 is going to be 0, and 0 again, because 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 20, that's going to be 4 times 5, that's going to be 20, so 0. And you carry the 5, that should be added. Remember, you multiply before you add, so 4 times 2 is 8 plus 2 again, that's going to be 10. All right, you carry a placeholder, put down your placeholder, and then you multiply by 1. So that's 1 times everything, so that's going to be 0, 0, 5, and 2. Then we add, so that's going to be 0, 0, 0, 5, 3, So that's 35,000. So that's gonna be B. All right. So moving on. So we're going down to question 28. A customer buys a piece of cheese that costs $4.68, a bag of cookies for $1.45, and a spice bun that costs $3.70. How much change should the customer receive from $20? So this is a city and guilds question. So first things first, you want to add everything up together and then subtract it from 20. All right, so you start by adding the largest number first. So that's gonna be, hold on, how many did he buy? So a customer buy a piece of cheese that costs $4.68, yes. A bag of cookies for $1.45, yes, and a spice bun that costs $3.70. Okay, so that means that they only bought one of each. So that means that's gonna be $4.68. This is gonna be $3.70, and then we have our $1.45. So we add first to know how many what's gonna be our total at the shop. So that's gonna be 8 plus 5, that's 13. So 8 plus 5 is 13. 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 plus 7 is 14. 14 plus 4, that's 18. Carry the 1 to be added. 1 plus 4, 5. 3. So that'll be 8. And then we have 9. So the total is going to be $9.83. But we're not finished because guess what? We paid with what? We paid with what? $20. So how much change should we receive? So this total now, you're gonna subtract it from 20. So let's write it down. So 20. We paid with $20. So $20 is gonna be 20.00. I'll put down what our total was. So that's $9.83. We subtract. That's gonna be, we're gonna borrow. So if we borrow 1 from 2, we're gonna be left with 1. Carry the 1 right here. We're gonna borrow again. So we're gonna be left with 9. Carry the 1 over here. We're gonna borrow again, so we'll be left with 9. And carry the 1 right here, so we have our 10. All right, so 3 from 10, we'll be left with 7, right? So 8, 9, 10, yeah. Subtract 8 from 9, you're gonna be left with 1 point. You have 9 minus 9, you'll be left with 0. And we only have a 1 right here, so that's $10. So $10.17. That will be our change. All right, so moving on to question 29. What is the value of 6, of the digit 6 in the number 48.061? So the 6 right here is less than 1, and it's in the hundredths place. So a hundredths place means that it is 6 divided by 100. So it's in the hundredths place. So this right here, C is gonna be your answer. All right, moving right along. So after multiplying, we already established that if we multiply two decimal numbers, if this is 1 decimal place and this digit has 1 decimal place, then our answer should have, so our answer should have 2. You add the decimal places together, so your answer should have 2 decimal places, because 1 plus 1 equals to 2, so 2 decimal places. You don't remember what I'm talking about? Well, I'll show you. So right up here, all right, when we were doing this right here, so if you have the decimal places, the sum of the decimal places tell you how much decimal place your answer should have. So in this case right here, because this is 1 decimal place, this is 1 decimal place, the answer should have 2 decimal places. All right, so let's multiply quickly. That's gonna be 0.0 7 times 0.6. I'm just gonna multiply. All right, so 6 times 7, that's gonna be equal to 42. So you put down the 2, carry the 4 to be added. 6 times 0, that's gonna be 0 plus 4. That's gonna be 4. And if you multiply by 0 afterwards, you'll have just 0, because placeholder 0. So let me put the placeholder in a different color. So placeholder 0, and then you multiply by 0 afterwards. So 0 times 0. You add, that's gonna be 2, 4, 0, and your answer should have 2 decimal places. So that means that your point should come before 2 numbers. So that's 1, 2. So your answer should be equal to 0.42. So 0.42. So that's gonna be your answer right here. Find the exact value of. So normally, well, you're going to actually have to divide and then you multiply. So let's go through it because you're not going to use any calculator in the exam. So let's just quickly do this then. So you're going to divide first. So you're going to divide your 8 points, your 1.8 divided by 37.26. All right. Now the thing is, whatever you're dividing by, should be a whole number. All right. So whatever you're dividing by should be a whole number. So always ensure that whatever you're dividing by should be all right. So we can change our decimal number into an whole number by moving your decimal point. So in this case right here, if we have 1.8, sorry, if we are going to change this into a whole number, then we'd have to move our decimal point 1 time to the left. So we have to move it 1 time. This is very important because it's going to tell us now how many times do we have to move the number we are dividing by. All right, so we're going to move it 1 time. So the number that we're dividing by, we're going to move it the same amount of time. So if we're dividing by 37.26, we're going to move that point also the same amount of time. So we're going to move it 1 time to your right. So we're going to end up dividing 18 by 18 divided by 372.6. So that's how we set it up. All right, so that's how we set it up. Whoa. So now that we know what we're dividing by, we're gonna divide by 18. We can easily just do the working out to finish it out. All right, so how that's gonna look? The first thing first, we know our steps for dividing. Remember the steps for dividing. Divide comes first, then multiply, then you subtract, then you bring down, then you repeat the process. All right, so always remember that. So the first thing first we're gonna do is to divide. How many times 18 can go into 37? All right, so how many times 18 can go into 37? So looking at that right now, if you are checking, then 18 goes into 37 2 times. right? So 18 going to 37 2 times, and I'm talking about 37. So we're working it just like this. So 2 times 18, that's going to be equal to 36. So let's write it. So 36. After you multiply, you always subtract afterwards. After subtracting, you always bring down. So it's after you bring down, that's when you repeat the steps. So that means that you have 12 now. So after you bring down right there, you have 12. How many times 18 can go into 12? That's 0 times. Let's write it a little bit better with the color. So it goes into it 0 times, right? And 0 times 18, that's going to be equal to 0. After you multiply, you always subtract. So you're going to be left with 12. Now, this is going to be an important part for those who do not know to multiply. So after you subtract, you always bring down. But guess what? We brought down a number that came after a decimal point. So anytime you bring down a number that comes after a decimal point, you ensure you put a decimal point in your answer. All right, so let me just erase the top right here so we can have some more space. All right, so now we have 120. Ensure anytime when you bring down a number that comes after a decimal point must be where your answer is. So that's the reason why I put that decimal point right there. So what I am going to do now, I'm just going to divide how many times 18 can go into 126. So 18 goes into 126 7 times. So let's go. Write it down. 7. Because 7 times 18, that's gonna equal to same 126. And that's gonna be 126. After you subtract, you have nothing remaining. So the answer is going to be equal to 20.7. So 20.7. So 0.7, but remember that all of it is being divided by what? 1,000. So let's quickly put that into the equation right here. I'm going to write it down. So that means that I'm going to rewrite my equation right here after I simplify, after I would have done the division. So that's going to be 20.7 all over divided by 1,000. All right, so how many zeros are in this equation right here? Sorry, how many zeros are in 1,000? 3 zeros are in 1,000. 3 zeros. 3 zeros. So because 3 zeros are in 1,000, you're going to move your decimal points 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. So your new decimal point. So you put a 0 where have you open, you put a 0. And your new decimal point will come right here. And a 0 will come right before your decimal point right here. Right here. So 0.0207. So you look and see where that is. So the answer is right here. 0.0207. So B is going to be your answer for 31. All right, moving on. What is the total of 10 over 5 and 1 over 2? So we're asked to add. We're being asked to add these two fractions. Okay. So this is going to be 9 over 10 plus we have 1 over 2. So the first thing that we're going to do is to write our lowest common denominator between 10 and 2, and that's going to be 10. What number did you multiply 10 by now to get 10? That's going to be, so the same color. That's going to be 1. 1 times 10, 10. Anything you multiply the bottom, you must multiply the top. All right. So 1 times 9, that's going to be equal to 9. So 9 plus, what do you multiply 2 by now to get 10? You multiply it by 5. 5 times 2 is 10. You multiply the bottom, you must multiply it by the top. 5 times 1 is 5. So 9 plus 5, that's going to be equal to 14 over 10. And you just simplify. So simplify means that you find what number can divide both bottom and what on the top, so it must be the same number. So if I divide 14 by 2 and I divide 10 by 2, I can simplify. So what we did right there, after we get the answer, we're just simplifying. So we divide both numbers at the top and bottom by 2. So you're gonna be left with 7 over 5. And 7 over 5, we're gonna write this as a mixed fraction. So we're gonna write it as a mixed fraction. So we're gonna write this number as a mixed fraction. Right. As mixed. So all we have to do is just to divide. So all we do is just to divide. So we're gonna divide. So how we divide? We're gonna divide. We're gonna divide 7 by 5. All right. So how many times 5 going to 7? That's 1 time. 1 times 5, that's gonna be 5. Subtract, you'll be left with 2. This now is gonna be my numerator. So this is gonna be my numerator. This is gonna be my denominator. And this is gonna be my whole number. That's gonna be my whole number. So that's lovely. All right, so writing it out, it's gonna look just like this. So the numerator is gonna be 2. The denominator is going to be 5. And the whole number is going to be 1. And you can always test it out. 1 times 5 is 5, plus 2, 7 over 5. So it means it should be in the same thing. So your answer is going to be C. All right, question 34. So 21 plus 43 plus 43 times 2 is, so you know the order of operations already. Order of operations. So the order of operations tells you that before we add, we have to multiply. So we multiply before we add. So we must multiply by 2. So 43 multiplied by 2 is gonna be equal to 2 times 3 is gonna be 6. And 4 times 2 is gonna be equal to 8. So that's for 86. 86 plus 21. That's gonna be equal to 7 and 10. So 100 and use this graph to answer questions 43 and so use this graph to answer some questions. All right. So give the coordinates of point I. So point I is gonna be right here. So coordinates are normally marked as, so let me just first identify what they're talking about. So I is right here. The point is right here. So coordinate is normally written as x to y. So that's the order two. So looking at this right here, the x-axis goes across and the y-axis goes up and down vertically. So on my x-axis, I is going to be negative. I is on the negative 2 for the x-axis, and for the y-axis, I is at so we're increasing 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, so that's gonna be -5 because from -4 to this point right here, that's gonna be -5. So that's gonna be our coordinates for I. So -2 and -5. So C is the answer right here. All right, for the graph, give the coordinates for point C. So point C, let's look at point C. So point C is right here. So point C is for the y-axis. Remember, all right. So C, let's put C right here. Let's use a different color for C. So I'm using red. So C now is gonna be equal to. We're gonna find what point is on the x-axis and the y-axis. So that's gonna be C is equal to. Let's look at the x-axis. So on the x-axis going across right there. If you look right there from -2 going up, touches C, so that means that's gonna be -2, 2. On the y-axis now, it's on 4. That's a +4. So -2 and +4 on the y-axis. All right. So that's for C. -2 and +4. So A. All right. What is 5A squared? That's equal to. So all of this was being squared. So that's gonna be equal to. So that's equal to 5A times 5A. So 5 times 5 is 25. And A times A is A squared. So that's what it's equal to. So D is going to be your answer right there. All right. But inequations right here, we're just going to solve it just like a regular linear equation. So we're going to move over this like term right here. So move over this constant. So that's going to be the 6 right here. And we're going to move it over the next side of the equal sign. Now notice, the 6 is not subtracted. The negative sign is in front of the 3x, not the 6. So this is a positive 6. So if I move over that 6, I'm going to have -3x greater than or equal to 12 minus 6. Because this 6 right here is a positive 6. Notice when I moved over the 6, the negative sign is in front of the 6. So it wasn't a negative number before. All right, so that's going to be equal to now -3x is greater than or equal to 6 minus 12. That's going to be 6. And then we're going to divide both sides, as we need to get x by itself. So we're going to divide both sides by -3. So we're going to divide by -3. All right, so these will cancel out each other. So x now is going to be equal. So it's going to be greater than or equal to -6. So 3 divided by 6, that's going to be 2. And because it's negative divided by positive, that's going to be a -2. So -2. So A is your answer right here. And be careful of the sign. Ensure that you see the greater than or equal to. Ensure that the sign is the same. All right, so the area of a rectangle must not be more than 198 centimeters squared. If the length of a rectangle is 18 centimeters, translate the word problem to figures. All right, so the area of a rectangle is equal to length times width. The area right there is given as 198, and the length there is given as 18. So 18, and we were not given the width, so it's gonna be 18 times W. 18 times W, in this case right here, it's the same thing as 18W. All right, 98. All right, so next thing that I want to do now, after establishing all this now, I am gonna write it just as the word promises. So it says that it must not be more than. So that means that the area must not be more than. So the length times the width must be either less than or equal to this figure right here, 198. So the less than sign is going to be right here. So it must be less than or equal to 198. So that's the less than sign. So 18W. So length times width must be less than or equal to 198, because it says it must not be more than 998. That means that it can be equal to 198. So this is what it should look like. So the answer right there is B. So it should be less than 18W. So length times width should be less than or equal to 198. So that would be the answer for that question right there. All right, so moving right along. All right. So what is the value of 8 raised to the power of 4 divided by 8 raised to the power of 8? This question right here, you're just gonna do the powers first. So you're gonna raise the 4 to 8 first. So that is, so 8 raised to the power of 4. That's gonna be equal to, sorry, that's gonna be equal to 8 times 8 times 8 times 8, and you then divide that by 8 raised to the power of 2. That's going to be equal to 8 times 8. You can easily just simplify because of the way the answer is given. So you can just simply cancel the 8 at the bottom of the top. Then you're left with just 2 8 right here. So you're left with just what? 8 times 8. 8 times 8 is just 8 raised to the power of 2. So your answer is going to be equal to C. All right. Transpose for m in the formula. So we have y is equal to mx plus 2, and we want to make m the subject of the formula. So in order to make m the subject of the formula, we move over everything just as though we would solve our equations like before. So the first thing that we'll have to move over, because we're doing the reverse, just like the order of operations, is the reverse of the order of operations. So that tells us what we're supposed to move away first. So we're going to do the reverse of the order of operations. All right, so that means that because the order of operations says that we're supposed to multiply before we add, when we transpose, because we're doing the opposite, we're going to move away the addition first. So this C right here, that's being added, we're going to move it over to the other side of the equal sign. All right, so if I move over that C to the other side of the equal sign, I'm going to have y minus C is equal to mx. Once finished, we want to transpose for m. That means that we want to make m the subject of the formula. So in order to get m by itself, we must move over the x. And that x right there, it is multiplying. It is multiplying. So because the x is multiplying, if I want to move over this x right here, if I want to move the x right here to the other side of the equal sign, the sign will change to the opposite. So instead of multiplying, it's going to end up dividing. So I'm going to have, for my final answer, I'm going to have y minus c being divided by x. And all of that is going to be equal to m. So you're doing the reverse of the order of operations. So y minus c over x. So this right here is going to be my answer. All right, so we're asked to simplify. All right, so let's simplify them. So if we're going to simplify, these, then all we have to do is to group our like terms together. So we're gonna first group our like terms. So we're gonna have, let's see, our rs first. So we're gonna have 5rs plus 14rs. And then we're going to have our qs. So I'm gonna put my 9qs next. 9qx plus my 8qs and then I'm gonna have my 3r plus 3r, and then I'm gonna have my plus, sorry, I'm gonna have my 6q. All right, so after adding all my like terms, I'm gonna have 14 plus 55, that's gonna be 19rs. I'm seeing that. 9 plus 7, 9 plus 8, sorry, that's gonna be 17 qs's. I'm seeing that. I'm gonna have my r and I'm gonna have my 3q. So C is the answer right there. All right, so we're asked to simplify this as well. We're gonna do the same thing as above, where we just group our like terms. So we're gonna group our like terms right now. So that's gonna be 15. It's gonna be 15 x squared minus, sorry, 15x squared y minus 4x squared y and we have a minus x squared y as well, minus x squared y, and then after that we have these following like terms. That's gonna be plus 5x, sorry, 5xy, and is there another xy? Okay, minus 5xy. So minus 5xy again. So is there another xy? Is there another xy? No. So all my xy is gonna cancel each other out because they're subtracting. So that's gonna be equal to 0. If you look at it closely, you realize that this is equal to 0. Because 5 minus 5 is gonna be equal to 0. That's gonna be 0. And next we have our like term right here. So that's gonna be 15 minus 4. That's gonna be 11. And then we have another term right here. We have another. This is 1 term, 2 term, 3 term. So after subtracting this term from this term, 15 minus 4, we get 11. And then after subtracting, so let's write it down. So 11 x squared y minus x squared y. That's gonna be you're gonna be left with 10 x squared y. All right, so treat them as individual terms. All right, and this is 1 term. So we have 10 x squared y. So these are what's this? These are answer right there. How many times 8 squared can go into 16x cubed? We'll be left with negative 2. So 8 divided by 16, that's gonna be 2. So 8 divided by 16, you'll be left with negative 2. If we take away x squared from if we divide x squared by x cubed, you'll be left with just x at the top. So you cancel off 2, you'll be left with just 1x at the top right there. All right. And if we have 1y below, if we divide it by y squared, we'll be left with just y above. You will be left with just y above. All right. And if we divide the highest common factor, between 0 raised to the power of 6 and 0 raised to the power of 5, the highest we can take off is 5. So we'll be left with no z at the top right there, all over z at the bottom. All right. So just you can look at it like that. So we'll be left with just 2xy all over z. All right. So simplifying, going down. So we know that when you see the brackets right there, we're just going to distribute. Right. So 3 times 2x, 3 times 1, 2 times negative 2 times x, and we have negative 2 times negative 1. All right, so that's gonna be 6x plus 3, and we're gonna have negative 2x plus 2, as negative times negative is positive, 2 times 1 is 2. All right, then we group our like terms. So if we group our like terms, we'll have 6 minus 2x, that's gonna be 4x, and 3 plus 2, that's gonna be 5. So that's 5 right here. What is the highest common factor between a squared and b and a and b squared? Well, there's only one common factor. Out of this right here, you can only get 1a, and out of the 2 things right here, you can only get 1b. So ab is the highest common factor. All right, when 3 is subtracted from twice a number x, the result is 24. Which equation below best illustrates this? So when 3 is subtracted from twice a number x, so 2 times a number x, minus 3 is equal to 24. That's what it's saying. So that right here is gonna be B. All right. Given that P is equal to negative 3, Q is equal to negative 2, and R is equal to 5, what is the value of P, Q minus R? All right, so you just substitute and work. And I'm not gonna go through the rest of these questions. It's pretty straightforward. So what you do right there, you substitute. So it's gonna be negative 3 times Q is gonna be negative 2, and R is gonna be 5. So you just subtract 5 first. So you do this first, you multiply before you subtract. Oh boy. So that would be, I tell you you're not gonna do, let me just quickly do it. So 2 times 3 is gonna be 6 and you minus 5. So that's gonna be 1. And remember, you work what is in the bracket first. So you distribute first. So after distributing, you should have 3x. So 2 times x, that's gonna be 2x. Negative 2 times 3, that's gonna be equal to negative 6. And that's equal to 10. So you work your like terms first. You work your like terms first. X is equal to, okay, subtract, so there's nothing there. There's gonna be strictly x is gonna be equal to 16. All right, so after subtracting, so 2 from 3 is x, so subtract. You have x, move over your 6. So that's gonna be 10 plus 6 is equal to 16. So that's gonna be that. So that's gonna be D.